welcome back after that short break. This is still Econo Chat. Let's talk business with Mr. Daniel Steinman, and this is your Power Station Energy 100. For those that just tuned in, we are talking about budgeting. We are close to the national budget being tabled by our finance minister, so it's important to actually go into this talk, and for our listeners to also understand the importance of why there should always be a national budget. And we've been talking about quite important things. We've been talking about IMF, but we have had these conversations before, Mr. Daniel Steinman, and I'm sure that our loyal listeners can recall. But for those who have not listened to it, you can of course go to economist.com.na in order for you to catch up to where we are today. We are talking budgeting, Mr. Daniel Steinman.
Yes, budget. The budget starts with the gross domestic product, which is in part a calculation or a series of calculations, and in part a mathematical progression, which is a nice word for a spreadsheet. It's values that grow, usually at a consistent pace. But it is also in part a large measure of intelligent guessing. And this comes in where if you look at government policy statements like we want to grow the economy, it must be sustainable, we want to create jobs, all of these they sound very nice, and you can very quickly, when you talk to somebody in the Ministry of Finance, you very quickly sense who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't. Because if they give you all this hogwash, all this jargon, sustainability, job creation, blah, 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 they haven't got a clue. But when you talk to somebody who tells you, this is how we are going to create the jobs, then this is a different horse. And this is how we are going to apply the policy to grow the economy in these specific sectors. Tangible plans, not just that nice dreams. Let it be sustainable. Let there be jobs. The jobs won't come of itself. We have to make them.
Sure.
So it's very important, and this is why the budget is the primary tool to execute budget policy, government policy. And the GDP, gross domestic product, is the crown calculation. So if I say that, and if I said a large part of the budget is intelligent guessing, it's not a negative remark. That's how you go about a budget. But it implies that you don't have all the answers. You have certain strategies, and you have targets, and you know what you want to achieve, and you've got a good idea through the projects that you finance how you want to achieve it. But the budget is not the Bible. Some people make the mistake to think it is, but it is not. So if you look at GDP, it is crucially important that your GDP is projected as accurately as possible. Now, in economics, one of the things that you learn later in your studies, and this is fairly advanced studies, is that there's no single widely or universally accepted method to determine GDP. There are actually quite a couple of different methodologies, and they are often in conflict. They are competing for outcomes based on the same facts. So again, it's good to go back to the IMF and to the Article 4 conventions, and we have been using that budgetary framework since 2013 very effectively. Meaning it gives us a relatively dependable GDP figure. Now the important thing is, and you will remember that I spoke about this last year, is that the economy really took a big knock in 2020 with COVID. And 2021 was just also very dead. And 2022, we slowly dug ourselves out of the hole. But remember I said the figures, the growth looks so good because where we come from, the base was so low.
Yeah.
We've lost so much.
Yeah.
So getting back a little bit looks like we've gained a lot, but it didn't. It was only last year, 2023, that there was significant growth. But the important thing is that we surpassed the 230 billion Namibia dollar mark for GDP, the economy as a whole.
Yeah.
And why is this important? Because already in 2016, at the start of the recession that preceded COVID, we had big dreams and lofty ideals and budgets that talked about 200 billion Namibia dollar and 210 or 204 I think was one, and 206 billion. We never got there. It was all eroded by the recession that started at the end of 2016 and that carried on for 3 years until we got COVID. And if you think the recession was bad, then came COVID, and then we find out what was really bad. So GDP, Crown calculation, I'm not exaggerating. It's the anchor point.
Yeah.
Everything is determined by that. We know that the GDP will be more than 230 billion. It will be interesting to see how much more, because that is a reflection of the confidence of the Ministry of Finance in the whole budgetary process. So if they're very confident in the economy, you will possibly see a budget for 242, 244 billion Namibia dollar or a GDP. And if I see that, remember the budget is the first fairly dependable indication of what we can expect for the rest of the year. The budget, the minister obviously, because of the ministry of which he's the boss, he's privy to much more deeper information than you and I can get. He knows what's going on. So what is presented in the budget is a mirror of what is expected for the rest of the year, not just on the expenditure side, on the whole economy.
Yeah. The whole economy, and of course realize the important development of the country, but also that we know the importance of GDP. So if you see GDP somewhere, take note of it and read through it, because it is very important that you do know what the GDP of your country is. Let's quickly go for a short break, and once we come back, we will end this with quite an interesting conversation as well.